All right, Reagan, you ready to roll into this division?
Yeah, well, we're gonna start worst to first again, and then during the Eagles segment, we got our boy Mike, Big Mike Greta, so he'll be hopping on with us during the Eagles portion. So we'll get some
Yeah.
Eagles thoughts as well.
Big Mike
But
Greta donated to the Valerie Fund, baby. Really appreciate that.
mm-hmm.
In our Instagram bio, if you feel the need. Okay, it's for the kids. All right, the Washington Commanders, Reagan.
We
a
love the
6.5. Yeah, we love the kids. A 6.5 win total this year. Obviously, they added Jayden Daniels to the quarterback room. They're finally out of quarterback hell. Well, that's what the Commanders fans hope. Reagan, what are you anticipating for the Washington Commanders in 2024?
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a rough year. I'm not buying into it at all. I actually have them technically they're coming in third, but I have them winning 5 games this year, dude. I'm not sold on this team at all. I just think it's a young team, and I think they will have a lot of bright spots this year. Like I think Jaden Daniels will prove he's the guy, but I just think there's going to be a lot of growing pains for him, and I just think this team's still a year or two away from competing. So yeah, I got him 5-12. I mean, I like a lot of the draft picks they got. I'm super high on Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. Like I think he's going to be a very valuable guy, especially for fantasy. So he's a guy I'm targeting late in all kind of platforms, especially Dynasty. I wasn't able to get him, but I'm definitely trying to acquire him. Best ball, drafted him late, but he's a guy that I really like. And, it's just tough for me with Washington because I just think they're far away. But hey, at the end of the day, you got a new ownership group, and so far they've been making all the right moves. So if I'm a Washington fan, future is bright.
You're right, Reagan. That is the biggest win for the Commanders over the last year was the new ownership group, even more so than Jayden Daniels, because Dan Snyder was just the worst owner in all of sports. Don't have to get too much into that. Thank God he's out of there. I know Walmart's pretty pumped about that. They did have some losses. Charles Leno, Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel, Cam Curl, Antonio Gibson. Nothing too significant. Obviously, Jayden Daniels, Jerzon Newton, their second-round pick, defensive tackle out of Illinois. However, probably the strength of this team is their interior defensive line with Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. So I don't know how much
Newton
playing time. Yeah, I don't know how much playing time Newton's going to get this year, but we'll see. Dorrance Armstrong is a solid addition at the edge. Frankie Louvu, another solid pass rushing addition. Tyler Biadasz at center. Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler, Jeremy Chin. A lot of aging veterans in that group right there, but we'll see. I mean, their schedule isn't too difficult. It's the 13th easiest schedule projected by Sharp. I mean, the run game wasn't good last year. The offensive line was terrible. They allowed the second highest pressure rate in the NFL. I'm sure the Giants were first. They allowed the most quarterback hits, second most sacks. Only the Giants were worse. Their quarterback play was awful, really inaccurate. Howell put up a lot of numbers because they threw the ball a ton with Eric Bieniemy as OC. I'm not a believer in Austin Eckler anymore. 3.5 yards per carry last year. I think it's weird though because the year before he was so good and he just fell off a cliff. So I'm really not sold on him. I think Brian Robinson's the better back at this point. He had 1,100 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. He's pretty solid. As I mentioned earlier, Terry, another 1,000-yard season last year with bad quarterback play. Dotson hasn't lived up to it. First-round pick out of Penn State. I liked him. But honestly, the problem with this team last year, Reagan, was the defense. They were basically bottom 3 in every major metric. It was terrible. And although Dan Quinn is
their best defender mid-season.
Yeah, they traded away Montez Sweat, who was their best defender, and then Chase Young, who, although never lived up to draft status, he just never really recovered after that major knee injury. But they did add a lot of edge rushers this offseason. Dan Quinn is the right hire for them to fix this defense, though. I will say that. His defense is in Dallas, which we'll get into later, but they just wreaked havoc. They had the best turnover margin in the league. They returned so many I think they had 6 return for touchdowns last year, which is ridiculous. So I do like bringing in Dan Quinn, but there's just a lot of question marks in the back end of that defense. Emmanuel Forbes was awful as a rookie, over 600 yards allowed in coverage. Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen both kind of took a step back last year. Armstrong had 16 sacks over the last 2 seasons under Dan Quinn in Dallas, so I do like that addition. But I don't know, man. The secondary is still bad. I got him at 6-11.
I'm just confused. Sorry to cut you. I'm just confused about the direction of this team. All the moves don't really make sense because you're trading a guy like Montez Sweat, and you get a good pick out of it, but he's a guy who's on the younger side still. But then in the offseason, you go out and sign a bunch of veterans that are outside of Bobby Wagner. Yeah, he had a good year, but what's the point of paying Eckler?
Yeah, he's 34.
Chin? Like, you're going out and paying a lot of old guys. It doesn't really like add up. Like the timeline of this team is very confusing because you have a good draft, but then you go out and pay a lot of veterans that like aren't even like good to the point anymore that you're going to be competing. You're kind of just paying them to pay them. Like you're just paying for names. Like just so many weird offseason signings. So the direction of they're trying to go this year is very confusing. So I don't know if it's just like new ownership group, like wants to win now, like willing to throw money around, but it's still better than Dan Snyder, but it's just very confusing, like where with a lot of these moves, very head scratching.
I agree with you 100%. Now, if Jayden Daniels gets hurt, this team is absolutely screwed. We touched on it earlier. He's the closest thing to Lamar in the league right now. Great deep ball. He does take a lot of hits, though, and he kind of has a slender frame. So if he doesn't learn to slide or get out of bounds and master that like Lamar Jackson has, it could be an issue. He also struggles under pressure, and this offensive line should be better. I mean, it's hard to be worse than what they were last year, but still, I'm a little worried about that. He did average 60 yards a game and had 34 rushing touchdowns in his college career, which is ridiculous. So again, touching that fantasy upside, it's definitely there. Newton's a stud. Like he was really good. His pressure rate was really good from the interior last year. Has a little bit of injury concerns, but he's also that third guy in the interior. So curious to see how they rotate those guys. And you love Sinnott. I think Sinnott's good too. I think he's definitely going to beat out Zach Ertz pretty early.
Oh, 100%, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to use the guy all over the field. He's going to be getting touches in the backfield too. The guy's a chess piece. They use them all different kinds of way at Kansas State. So I'm super excited for him.
Absolutely. And before we move on from the Commanders, I just want to shout out Luke McCaffrey. Dude's played receiver for 2 years. And although he was playing at Rice, he was a stud. He's a good athlete. He's got good technique. He looks pretty good. Those McCaffrey genes, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Luke McCaffrey actually ends up being the number 2 wide receiver in this offense and surpasses Jahan Dotson, despite the draft capital that Jahan Dotson has, because it's no longer that same regime. So
what do you think? So who's your MVP?
My MVP is Terry McLaurin. I think he's got to be that guy for Jayden Daniels to aid in his development. He's probably going to have another 1,000-yard season. It was just tough for me to pick anyone else. I mean, you could go Jayden Daniels. A little risky, though. Jayden Daniels is my X factor because if he has a really good rookie season, then this team could potentially push for a wild card spot. But, yeah, I think Terry McLaurin is the most important because of what he can do to aid Jayden Daniels' development.
Yeah, my MVP would be Bobby Wagner, and that just means he returns to the all-pro form or even close to it, just a tackle machine and just the leader of that defense. Because let's be honest, I mean, Jaden McDaniels can be incredible this year, but it won't matter if the defense is allowing 30-something points a game. Like we saw Stroud was incredible last year, but the defense was also very good on Houston. So I think Bobby Wagner's got to play at like an MVP like level to be the leader of this defense and even give them a chance in some of these games. Because I don't expect Washington's offense to be cracking 20 points every week. So the defense is going to have to step up and win some close games. And
I like that call.
And my X factor would also be Daniels, just because, obviously his ceiling is so high, but his floor is also super low. So it's such a boom or bust player year one, where he's, however good he is really going to be the deciding factor. Because even if the defense is playing good, if he's like a Bryce Young 2.0 from last year, and I'm just more so like, not that they're the same player by any stretch, it's just more like where the capital is and stuff, like in a team that has a lot of holes and struggles a lot. Like when you saw he wasn't able to elevate them, which not many people could. It was a terrible situation. The team sucked. So, and it wasn't like he was playing well either, where it's like, well, look at Bryce. At least he's playing good. It's the defense and the weapons around him. Like, so it'll be interesting.
Okay.
But rookie is Ben Sinnott. Rookie of the year is Sinnott, and Depoy would be Bobby Wagner for me. So,
okay.
But I already talked about them both a lot. So
yeah, I got Jonathan Allen as my depoy. Just him returning to form and being that dominant force in the middle, I think would make wonders for this defense, especially in stopping that run game, applying some pressure up the middle so that secondary doesn't get torched as much. Rookie of the year, I mean, Daniels is the obvious choice. I did put Sinnott here as well, just because, to spice it up a little bit. I do think he'll be the starting tight end earlier than not. And hopefully him and Daniels can establish a relationship early and he can become that safety blanket to aid in that development. Mm-hmm. All right, Reagan, let's move on to the New York Football Giants.
Whoa, Drock's got to give his hot take for the team, bro. Relax.
Yeah,
here.
Come on.
Oh, no, Drock, I thought you were saving it all for the ends. All right, what's your betting take?
No, it's a betting thing, right?
Yeah, but I had this in before Colin said that they have one of the easiest schedules. Is that right? Or the 13th easiest schedule?
Yeah.
The Commanders with the least amount of wins in the regular season plus 1,100. No explanation. I'll see you on the next.
It just cut out like halfway through, bro.
He just dipped
Oh my
out.
God.
All right,
So
Commanders have the worst record in the league. I think that would require Jayden Daniels being either really bad or getting hurt, and that defense still being terrible. But
yeah, no, that's
okay.
a good first of many Drock locks slam at futures. So I have no
Attaboy.
problem with that. The value's pretty good there too, plus 1,100.
That's juicy.
I mean, it's a tough thing to make, but and the only thing with those ones that are tough to root for, it's like you're almost like rooting for them to get injured for that one because if Mariota takes over, there's a fucking amazing chance then that hits.
Absolutely.
I
mean,
like
they
that
picked
a
second
lot.
last year, and they have a rookie quarterback now. They still have a lot of holes. Dan Quinn hasn't been a head coach in quite a while, although he's not a rookie. He has led a team to a Super Bowl, which I think helps. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate the value there at plus 1,100.
No, not at all.